The mindful session. Today we'll be discussing about phobias, and as usual, my host, co-host.
I've been demoted and promoted in seconds. It's phenomenal.
I love you, David.
Hi guys, I'm Dave Sleet, Managing Director of A&A Psychological Accreditation and Eunice's co-host.
That is excellent. Thank you for clarifying that. I couldn't even say it any better. David, today what we're going to talk about is phobias. Now, phobia comes from the Greek term, phobos, which relates to fear. So the whole aspect of us having this show is because there are so many different phobias that we're not going to be able to touch upon, not all of them. But please feel free to contribute onto this show, and as usual, as we always say, call into the station and we can be able to support you to the best of our abilities. Log into our, Facebook and comment, and we'll be more than happy to support you as well. So, David, let's go into this.
Phobias. And
go ahead.
An irrational fear is the basis of phobia.
Correct.
But fear is rooted in survival.
That is so.
So at every point along somebody's life experience, there will be an element of fear that triggers a phobia.
Yeah, but you know what? I think phobia, when you have a phobia, it's something that you can either gain from someone in your family, or you can develop through, something that happened to you while you're growing up. So I think each and every one of us do have a phobia, depending on how we manage it.
Yeah, and phobia is something that if it doesn't impact on your day-to-day life, becomes relatively easy. If it's something that impacts on how you live your life, things that you avoid because of a phobia, it can be a really big deal. And like you say, the root of that phobia can be something that's happened in childhood.
Correct.
One of the biggest phobias among humans is spiders.
One of the biggest.
Yeah. And when we look at how we interact with children, when it comes to spiders, it can, as you say, be picked up from how other people respond.
Someone that is close to them.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the same for a lot of kind of deep-rooted phobia. It can be picked up by our early experience of other people's phobia.
Because the phobia I have, I'm not afraid to say it, it's needles. I'm terrified of needles. I get this anxiety where I start sweating, where I'm looking for the door, where's the nearest exit, And up to date, even though mentally I tend to be stronger than others or stronger than, but we all have our strength in one way or another. But that is my utmost weakness. I cannot tend to get over that.
That's your Achilles heel.
Thank you.
And I think whatever triggered that at an early age, it would probably, from my experience, tie back to early inoculations and the reaction when somebody was giving you an early needle delivery of inoculations. And it can be as simple as you start to cry like any child that has an injection, and the reaction is to nurture the crying. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's what happens. People get upset because there was a needle. and it then grows and it forms in that subconscious, and that can always be retrained. The brain can always be retrained.
Precisely. That's why I always say we need to utilize the conscious instead of the subconscious. Because when we focus too much on the subconscious, that's the old. But when we tend to use the conscious, we tend to pick up new things and learn new things. So that's the whole element of, the conscious and the subconscious. Each and every one of us do tend to rely on our subconscious.
Yeah, and when we get, we can be tripped up by our subconscious, and it's there to protect us. It's there, but it's also
our subconscious is there to protect us.
It gives us those innate warnings, that early warning system, that baseline of fear is in there.
The instinct
and
aspect.
Therefore, so where something is built around that fear and it's nurtured and it's locked away, that root is locked away in subconscious, it will always have a line through whatever happens in the outside world, and what's happening to us. Needles is one phobia, spiders is another, but there are a myriad of phobias that have all been identified based on people's reactions to certain situations. And not all phobias are irrational. A phobia of sharks, is that irrational?
It's not irrational at all.
Right. But is it something that stops you going into the sea?
No. See, that's what I want us to focus on. Ladies and gentlemen, like I always say, I need you to call in, text, and we're quite happy to respond and also give you our feedback. We're here to support you. That's what the whole essence of this show, surrounds itself around, trying to give you that support that you need. Now, as I always stated, we cannot support you if we don't know what you're going through. So all we can do, as usual, is just generalize. Now, David, being that there's so many phobias out there, which indeed, it's a trigger, anxiety, sweating palms, heartbeats, heavy breathing, and so forth. What we should do is just give out some strategies on how to cope with some of these phobias. Now, I will jump in the water. Let me go first.
Okay.
When you're suffering from a phobia, I love to say, write, David. Vani put a stamp in my head, write it down. Write it down, the severity of your phobia, and as it escalates, to the high.
What are those trigger points?
The trigger points. Thank you. Now, when you write this down, then you know exactly where you are, and you take it a step at a time. Now, I'm afraid of bees. Hypothetically, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid.
It's afraid of bees.
No, but basically, the way one can get through the fear of bee is not. There are different strategies, which indeed we'll go into, but it's to start little. Watch the cartoons of bees. Start developing yourself.
It's that familiarization before immersion, and then before contact.
Precisely.
And giving yourself time as well.
Yeah, timing does count. It does make a difference, but also taking the steps of acknowledging the bees, you understand, before jumping in the room full of bees. Now, a test was done where this lady was so terrified of bees. I forgot the name of the article, and they put her in the room. Before she even walked into the room, she almost fainted out of fear. Now, the thing I love about the article was that when they put you in the room, it's you that control, because the body will eventually give up. All that hyperventilating, you will calm down eventually. So it's you that is in control. So if you let the mind control the whole aspect of it, you'll never be able to control. So the essence of my story is that when they put her in there, now they put that protector so the bee don't bite her, something ethical. And she stood there screaming. Sometimes it depends on the therapy or therapist that you go to. They will put you to that extreme, depending on the severity of the of the phobia.
And this is the thing. When you have a phobia and you're working with a professional to come to terms with that phobia, please make sure you are working with an appropriately trained and qualified therapist. Okay? Immersion therapy can be dangerous if it's not done properly.
That is correct.
Okay? You have to build up to immersion therapy.
No, but I'm sure before they put her in that room, and like David said, it is good to make sure that the therapist you go to, it's not a matter of the discount that you get, because, but just make sure you see the degree and you know who they've been working with. Do your research before you seek a therapist.
Yeah.
But there's so many different strategies, so that was just one of it. But you being put in that room, I thought that was just a little bit too severe. I don't know the root of it, but the article was very specific. They gave a lot of details, and the outcome was...
going through the process to achieve immersion therapy does not start and finish on day one. Okay, there are a lot of things that will go on behind the scenes, and if you are at a point where a phobia is impacting on your day-to-day life, that's the point where you really need to be looking for that professional that's going to be able to help you, so that your day-to-day existence does not diminish and your quality of life does not diminish based on a phobia. Okay? But there are certain things that you can take control of before you get to see a therapist. We've talked before, when something happens, take control of the situation. The breathing exercises will always be step one. Always understand that you're in control of how your body reacts to a situation.
Knowing yourself, knowing your body.
And if you want to kind of have a look at breathing exercises, we've done a couple of shows where we talk about those. There's also support available online that are going to give you some amazing breathing exercises that can be done very, very quickly and very, very effectively in the moment where you've been triggered by a phobia.
Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, we need you to reach out, get involved. I am responding to the Facebook. I am responding to you in every aspect of the way, just like this topic was sent via email, saying that they have a phobia in reference to bees. So it's all about the steps that you take, and we are going to give you the strategies that you need to try to overcome this step. Now, before we go any further, I just want to say a massive, massive hello to a very good friend of mine, Triple A. This gentleman is in America. He's doing something like we do, well, the other show that I do in reference to the government trying to help the youth in Sierra Leone. So he's been reaching out. AAA, Ibrahim, nice chatting with you. Okay, let's go into the phobias. Now, as I was saying, it's good to write down your steps. Know the degree of it utmost, and know that, by you writing this down gradually, and as you stated, take your time, you will overcome your phobia. Now, there are some phobias that you can do without medication, There's some phobias that you have to take medication, but me, as I always say, I don't believe in medication. I believe the mind can cure majority of these issues that we are suffering.
Yeah, medication will only ever take care of a certain portion of our responses, and that's simply by blocking the brain's receptors. So we have to be mindful that there are people that will be in receipt of medication to manage phobias, and this isn't a case of, okay, don't take the medicine. Okay, if you are under a doctor for medical assistance in dealing with your body's reaction to phobias, then don't stop taking the medicine, please. Let's understand that we have to get a balance, and by understanding the phobia, understanding the triggers to that phobia, will allow us an easier path to understand how we can put those steps in to control and, in essence, manage our own reactions to it.
David, this is where now you and I, we're going to go back and forth, because as I've stated numerous of times on this show, I think phobia is not an illness to say we need medication for. What medication does, ladies and gentlemen, and I've stated this numerous of times, it just masks the issue, the problem, the situation. It's not curing it.
No.
So by you taking medication for phobia, what is actually doing? You're encouraging the problem, the situation.
If it's used properly, if it's used in conjunction with additional supports around physical reactions to those phobias, it can be a useful tool. But it is not a cure, like you say. It is a tool to aid the process. And as long as it is used appropriately, and it is used safely, and it is used in conjunction with the wider support, then for some people it can have a benefit. However, if it is used in isolation, it won't have an impact. It will, as you say, it will simply mask.
Hypothetically speaking, David, I'm here to see my therapist.
Congratulations.
I have a phobia. Well, thank you. I have a phobia. Now, because of the fact that I'm reacting, does it mean I should start taking medication? That's absurd.
No.
So why are you bringing the whole aspect of medication into this?
Because what I'm saying is...
I do understand what you're saying.
At the moment, there will be people that will be having medical support in dealing with their reactions to certain phobias. And for anybody watching this that's in this situation, I don't want them to feel as though what we are saying is don't take the medication. If it's being done properly, if you're in that situation, please, please, please know that you should have a full support package around you that doesn't just depend on medication.
Precisely.
And that's the message, is medication alone will only deal with a component part. It won't deal with the phobia.
Medication will support you with this phobia for only a short period of time. The therapist that you're dealing with should be able to find remedies that will be able to support you and come to a halt with this phobia. Now, nothing happens overnight. Quite logical, quite sensible, understandable. But if I'm coming to see a therapist for phobia and you automatically start offering medication to ease my phobia or to slow my phobia, you're definitely not for me.
Yeah, and understand, the medication is not for the phobia. The medication will only be to alleviate the
stress,
physical reactions that you're having to that phobia. So you've got two things going on. There's a phobia that triggers a physical reaction and medication can help alleviate that component. It doesn't deal with the phobia. So, support packages have to be holistic. Support packages have to be smarter than just one dimension, being medication.
Fear itself can become something physical.
Of course it can.
You understand? So I do understand what you're saying, but at the end of the day, I like to be realistic. If someone was to come to me or I was to go to someone, medication is not an option, but I do understand the basis of where you're coming from, But again, David and I, we do banter, we go back and forth. You understand? We're just giving you different aspects of it, different understanding. Everyone you see will have their own opinion, and that's what makes it better than it is.
Yeah. If you are in that situation, if you are feeling as though a phobia has got to a point where it's impacting on your day-to-day life, please reach out for a therapeutic professional. I am not going to advocate, a particular approach, because different approaches apply to different people, and the therapeutic professional will know which approach to play for which people, and that's about open and honest communication with that therapeutic professional. So what we can say is, please know that there is no reason why a phobia should impact on your day-to-day life in such a way that you cannot carry out the functions that you want to carry out in your world.
Okay, let's talk about strategies. Okay, now we can sit here and name all these different phobias, but let's talk about, social phobias. You're afraid to go out, right, David?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You are afraid to go out.
I'm afraid to go out.
Thank you.
There's a great nasty virus out there. I don't want to go outside. What do I want to do that for? But
So,
it can then impact
steps
on the day-to-day interactions. It can then lead to isolation. It can lead to opening the door for wider mental health
depression,
issues, etc.
Isolation is not the key, ladies and gentlemen. Take baby steps. Baby steps.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I know you.
I was just gonna kind of come in on, no plan should be kind of considered without there being kind of backups and kind of escape routes, if you like. So each step is a move forward, and each step is considered as, does this open the door for another move forward? If it doesn't open a door for another step forward, then consider whether or not you need to make that first step. So always look at what are the things that trigger your phobia. What are the things that you can do? And look at the impact that that phobia has on your day-to-day operation. So I know we've got comments and stuff coming through. I can see you kind of tapping away. Unfortunately, our production team are so good at what they do, but we wanted to be able to make sure that we got to see your comments as they come in, rather than have them relayed to us, which is why UNISA is looking at the
And also, ladies and gentlemen, we can see your comments, but sometimes we like to respond. Like Sue said, she had her first blood work, 63 years, and it caused anxiety, which may be phobia of needles.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not the only one that had this fear of needles. So let's go through the steps of fear of needles.
Okay, so I'm not a therapist, as most of you that tune in week on week will know.
No, am I, ladies and gentlemen? I'm just David's therapist.
Not my therapist. It's not really, is it? So whenever we talk about approaches, everything else, we're talking about either lived experience or for myself when I've coached people that have phobias. So a fear of needles is ultimately comes down to the pain of what that needle does. Fair?
Fair. It's the essence of it. Now, sometimes when you look at a needle, the first thing you think about is the pain of it going in you. Now, if you sit there, there are different ways to come about this. If you think you have the fear, it's the mind. It's the mind that is playing with
It's
you.
already told you. That's painful.
That's painful.
But the needle's just sat on the table.
Yeah. So the way to eliminate that thought is to look at it and say, well, that's a small needle. What kind of harm is it going to do to me? And then think of it as to say, well, this needle is going to help me. Think about the positive aspects of the needle that is in front of you. As Sue said, she was getting her blood work done. You understand? So instead of being afraid of the needle, think about the cause of the blood work. Think about the results of the blood work. Why is the blood work needed? And once you start putting this into play and stop telling your mind the positive aspects of that needle, why don't I tell myself this, David?
Good question.
I like fear.
It's true. You can look at the outcomes. You can look at what is the overall impact. What that needle doing for you. And when a needle is used appropriately and it's used by a professional and it's used smartly, do you get more benefit from that experience than negative?
Life. Positive, negative. Pros and cons. And so forth. So whatever we decide to get into, ladies and gentlemen, life is not the easiest path. It's not the easiest journey. We're going to have turmoils along the way. Now, how we approach these turmoils, how we approach these humps, will help us onto our path. Now, if I have a fear of a dog, every time I see a dog, I cross the street or I run the opposite way. That is not helping me. Put strategies in place. Watch some videos about dogs, how friendly they are. I'm not telling you to see a dog and go pet a dog. It's not what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen. All I'm saying is build up the courage and then work it up. Get a stuffed dog, look at the adorable videos about dogs. Look how cute they are, look how fluffy they are. Now, if David was walking his dog, I'm not just going to go up to David and say, can I pet your dog? I mean, go up to the dog and pet him. David, is your dog friendly? Can I pet him?
Yeah. Being able to engage with what it is that has been a phobia is not going to happen overnight for a lot of people. But it is about building confidence and allowing yourself to understand, why is that a fear? Why is this a factor for me? And what can I do if I want to? Some people just don't want to. They're quite happy. I'm scared of dogs. That's fine. I don't need to go near a dog. I don't need to have a dog. I don't need to, quite happy with that. And don't want to deal with that. If they choose to deal with that, if they choose to have that experience reduce, then there are ways and means. And immersion of getting to the point where you can actually touch what it is that you fear.
That's a great success.
That's a massive move forward.
And even the fact of you not even touching, but just coming to in the presence of it. You understand? That is somewhat of an achievement.
And again,
always acknowledge your achievement. Applaud yourself. Tap yourself on the back. Give yourself a compliment. Well done. There's nothing wrong with that.
And as Eunice was saying earlier, if you've got that list of what are those trigger points, match that off with what would be the success for each of those trigger points.
Precisely.
And once you start knowing what your success points are, then you can start building your path to those rather than I'm avoiding the negative.
Okay, now let's talk about fear of heights, because these are all phobias. These are all,
Is
the
it a
Empire
fear of,
State
is it a fear
Building.
of height or a fear of falling? I've never been able to work it out.
They say fear of height, but at the essence of it is fear of falling, because looking down and say, whoa, But let's take a step at a time. Go up to the Empire. Well, wherever you are, try to go to a hotel, stand on the balcony, the indoor balcony, wherever it is, just try it. Make sure that you're in a safe environment where there's glass. Take it a step at a time to have a view of just looking down. Don't just jump into it. Do it gradually. As long as you have that safety net, there's nothing that you should not be able to try. You have to challenge yourself, and that is the only way to overcome fear.
The one thing that I would say on any phobia is always make sure that the people that are around you are supporting you in your choice to overcome that phobia. If the people around you are actually using your phobia against you, either as a means of comedy, as a means of belittling you, then it's going to be very hard to overcome that phobia. But also question whether or not they're the people that need to be around you in the wider sense.
Let me just intercede for a quick minute. Sue, I do acknowledge what you said. What Sue said just gave me the chills. In the 50s, the nurses were abusive to the kids. They will hold the kids down and then stop having a go at them, hooking them with the needles, trying to, I definitely can understand where, that can develop a phobia, where that can even come to a point of, just the thought of it can terrify someone, So, Sue, I do acknowledge what you're saying. It is scary, and, I'm just happy that the way times have changed. And also, Sue stated that when these kids were put into the hospital, they were put without the guidance of a parent. So the nurses were able to do whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah, and understanding that the systems of medical treatment from the past have an impact on those people of an age now where they are needing medical treatment more often than the rest of the population. And therefore, their experiences are not going to be the same as everyone who has not been through that kind of generational treatment packages, if you like. So being mindful that the experience of certain age groups is going to have been impacted by previous practices is vital. And it's something that I know certainly in the UK, the medical professionals are becoming more and more conscious of, that historic treatment packages have had a innate impact on the emotional understanding and interaction with medical treatments in the current age. But it, like you say, it's chilling to think.
It is.
How things have been done in the past.
The reason why I catch chills in reference to what Sue said is because I'm an advocate for youths, children. Anything that hurts children, I tend to feel it, and I tend to react to it. So I feel the pain when Sue made that comment, and I wish I can just reach out to those kids, each and every one of them, give them a hug and say, there'll be better days. Now, not to move too far from it, these are the better days. The medical professionals are so trained now to in a way where they have the butterfly needles, to work you through a phobia or fear. So they're quite trained, and parents are now allowed to be in the room with their children doing any kind of medical procedure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my apologies. Depending if it's a surgery due to
Yeah, I mean, there's time and a place, but we are kind of at a very
developing.
different, yeah, and the learning around the trauma impact of certain procedures, certainly in the medical arena, has certainly moved on in the last, even in the last, say, 10 years, and that's a credit to everyone that's been involved in learning that the emotional experience has a massive impact in the physical response in those situations. And that's partly to do with the acknowledgement that the human condition is made up of three parts: our psychological, our physical, and our emotional. And those three states have to be nurtured and have to be looked after at all times.
That is correct, David. But, if you are not taking care of the mental, it'll be quite difficult to take care of the physical.
Mm-hmm.
So we always, doing this show, want to focus on our mental being.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite critical that, ladies and gentlemen, you stay strong. There's now YouTube, there is Google, there's so much information out there at fingertips.
Mm-hmm.
You can get so much information off your phone. You can go to the nearest library if you like to read. The information is just limitless. So please do not think that the information is not out there. There are people like David and I that will give you our time. There are people out there, there are agencies, there are, so many specialists that are willing to work with you. So never feel as though you are alone, because in actuality, you're not. And never think that you're the only one suffering from a particular, phobia, illness. You are not. The more you talk about your situation, the more you're liable to get that help. The more you help someone, the more you're helping yourself. We need to focus on these aspects of it, David.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so understanding that phobia is not an anchor that is going to sink you. It doesn't have to hold you back from achieving the life that you want to achieve. You can make steps, you can take steps to achieve a reduced impact from that phobia. You can reach out to get professional support. You can reach out, as Eunice says, to get information about how that phobia can be overcome. And the only person that can make those steps is you. All of the information in the world is useless unless you ask the questions. And if you don't ask the questions...
My apologies. Understand there's no such thing as a wrong question. Every question is quite valid. You ask a question due to how you're feeling. So don't let anyone ever criticize your questioning.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way they think is not how you think. And how you think is not how that person thinks. So you're entitled to ask a question. There's no such thing as a relevant or dumb question. Please continue.
And that comes down to what we were talking about last week and the idea of the people around us and the teams that we have around us. Making sure that we understand that what we need for our own self-awareness, doesn't always apply to what somebody else needs for their self-awareness. It's you that matters. It's what you need. It's what you want. And it's your desires for how you want to live your life that matter. And a phobia should never be a preventative step in those journeys. You make that call. I have this phobia. I want to find out whether or not I can, or how I can overcome this, either by myself or if I need extra help. But you make that call, not the person next to you.
You know, like David said, you have to make that call. Ladies and gentlemen, you walk your shoes. You walk in your shoes. Only you can feel the discomfort within that shoe. You are the only one that can feel that pain. We spoke about this before, ladies and gentlemen. The best remedy is you. The best person that can help you is you. And once you acknowledge what your situation is, then you can seek for guidance, support.
And how much more in control of that phobia do you feel when you step up and say, it's not going to hold me back for very much longer. I am getting in front of this. I am coming out. I am taking control of this. I want my life to be impacted by this no more. And then taking the steps to make sure that that can happen. But if you're not there, don't think that you cannot get there. No phobia should ever hold you back.
You know, I remember growing up, David. I know what you're going to say. How can I remember that far?
I'm going to say, you know, it's what? Before cornflakes.
Way before cornflakes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I remember growing up because this was something that was built in me. When they say you need to come and read your assignment, I would stutter. My heartbeat would just go off the lap.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot control my breathing. So when I go up there and then I have to look at my fellow students, I cannot see the actual words on the paper because of the thought of them accepting me. Mm-hmm. And that's what society is all about, acceptance. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and I remember dealing with that for so long until I got into college. My confidence was building up. Mm-hmm. I had to walk myself through that, you know. And I remember the first time I got on stage, you and I spoke about that, to give my first motivational speech. I always wanted to be a speaker. So when I got on stage, I was nervous. I recall I had flashbacks, the subconscious kicked in of my early years, being in front of so many people. I was so nervous. But again, as long as you start accepting and knowing your fears, you can walk through it.
And again, it comes back to one of the things that we said really early on in the mindful session shows, was getting to a point where it's our inner locus of evaluation that matters. It's what's inside us. It's our perceptions, not the perceptions of other people, that really matter. And public speaking is something that a lot of people will always be wary of, always be nervous about. The idea of forgetting words, misstating something that's written on a piece of paper. And I've spoken to, I'd say, dozens of public speakers over the last decade. And all of them will say the same thing. When I try and just read what's on a page, it gets harder. When I trust myself, when I trust what it is that I am saying and what the message is that I want to purvey to the audience, it becomes easier because I don't need the script. I don't need all of these words. I just need topics. I'm going to talk about this because I know this stuff. I'm just going to talk this. And then you can start interacting with your audience. And it's not about being accepted by your audience. It's about being accepted by yourself for what you know and what you are able to share with your audience. And you found that the more comfortable you are with what you are expressing from yourself, the more comfortable you are speaking in public.
It's a fact. So, as I stated, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you tuning into the show. It's a pleasure for us to always be here to support you. Get involved with the group. We do respond. David will eventually respond. If you have an idea of a show that you want us to do, please reach out. And we'll be more than happy to touch bases with you and then see how we can support you. If you don't want us to say your name, because we have a lot of ideas coming into the group. But again, we have to prioritize each topic that come in. So by us explaining to us as to why you want us to talk about this, that's how we're able to pick the topic for the show.
Let us know what's important to you. Let us know what you would like us to explore, what you'd like us to discuss. And we can then work around what you guys are experiencing outside, and we can learn as well, because there are topics that we wouldn't otherwise think about sometimes.
That is true.
So get involved, and I think the more we can have that engagement with you, the more we're going to be able to bring to bear, and we can start then bringing people in to touch on those topics as well.
Yeah. I have this lady, May, so intelligent. Spoke to her. Can't wait for you to meet her.
Okay.
I'm going to pop her up on you. May is someone that, will hopefully after we discuss it, we'll try to bring on the show. And she was touching up on a lot of things about the youths and so forth, and a lot of things that creates the fear, the phobia in their lives is when they see mommy is afraid of, hypothetical, a broom, and then they want to approach the broom, mommy pulls them away. Don't go there. That's not supporting your child. Your job is to support the child, as to say, you know what, maybe I have a fear of it. Let me give that child that opportunity. Unless it's going to put of harm to that child, but let the child be a child and experience the aspect of life, the ability of growing up, because these are experiences that they will never forget.
Yeah. Always think beyond ourselves when it comes to a phobia, and what are the messages that our phobia is passing out to those that are looking to us for guidance. It's not always easy, and it's not always something that is comfortable, but I go back to the fear of spiders and this idea that as an adult being scared of something that is minuscule in size comparison to yourself and risk to yourself will give a false sense of risk assessment to a child. And that false risk assessment that a child grows up with can impact every other component part of the way they risk assess the things around their world.
You know, talking about risk assessments, I'm the king of risk assessments. You know, yeah, you have to put preventives and, the harm and, so forth. But like David said, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot put enough emphasis on it. This all relies on you. This is all about you knowing yourself. And this is making sure that you don't bring a child into your fear. Let a child be a child. David, as the show is coming to an end, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any ideas of what we should speak about next week, please reach out to us and we'll be more than happy, David or I or one of the team will reach out to you and see the root of the topic, and then we can talk around that. But please reach out to us anytime, and we're here to support your well-being. We want to see your growth. We want to see your prosperity.
We do indeed. We do indeed. And before we go, I would like to just pay a special mention to today's 76th anniversary of D-Day and the Normandy landings during World War II. Everyone that exists in Europe today is able to do so in a freedom that without today's events 76 years ago would be highly unlikely to exist. So to everyone that took part on that day, thank you. To everybody that was involved in the planning and the execution of that day, thank you. And to everyone who has loved ones in their family that was impacted by that day, thank you. Yes.
Well, thank you for mentioning that, David. We take a lot of things for granted. We take so much for granted. And I know we touch upon this, but Black lives do matter. In America, it's a lot of protests going on. Ladies and gentlemen, the only thing I can say is my heart goes out to everyone. We're all a human race. There's no such thing as a race. We're all the human race. We need to unify. We need to be strong. We need to find peace in within each other. Us hurting each other is not the remedy of peace. Us provoking each other is going to create a havoc down the line where innocent people will get hurt. Thinking within your heart, know who you are. You are a human being. You're humane. You are meant to love each other, love thy neighbor. There's nothing wrong. If I cut myself, I will see red. David cut himself, he will see red. You understand? There should be, remember, think of a child. A black child, a green child, a purple child, they play in the park. You don't see no indifference. It's us that creates what this child develops into. If a child see you embrace another race, another whatever, that child will learn to love. Let's nurture our children to be somebody. I love each and every one of you. There's no reason to hurt each other. As we come to an end, David.
I just want to follow on from Eunice's comments. Phobias are based in fear. Racism is based in fear. And until we grow past that fear, we will only ever repeat that experience. It's time to grow, not just change. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will see you next time. That's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, I love to smile, but whenever I sit next to David, oh. But we thank you all for watching the Mindful Session. It's a pleasure for you being here. We appreciate you. Again, this show was created for you, for us as a community to be able to support each other. We are here to do our part. We need you to get involved. I bid you all a good week.
Have a great time, guys.
You are watching Amaze TV.